It's just a cult about one guy. I wouldn't call it right to be so loving of Russia. Russia? Republicans love Russia now? They're always sucking Russia's dick on Fox News? That isn't right-wing. That's crazy because the leader of their party is crazy.
Bill Maher makes an absolute drunken fool out of himself once again on the Club Random podcast. This time, he talks to Dr. Phil. I don't know who came up with the concept of this show, but it is a complete train wreck. It is a complete hot mess that is entertaining for all the wrong reasons. Let's see Bill Maher and Dr. Phil talk about the issues. And Dr. Phil put up with Bill Maher's drunken buffoonery.
To me, it was an identity. That was my identity. I was the poor kid who needed to work.
That was your currency.
I don't know.
That was your currency. That's how you
Right.
bought your ticket
But
into the group. That's
but
how
I'm
you
just saying,
bought your ticket.
I just see that in politics a lot.
Yeah.
I think politics really, I'm going to do an editorial on this one day. It's so much more about personality. The politics, I believe, comes out of the personality. Like, if your personality is, pipe and slippers guy, just, old-fashioned, married a long time, happily married, doesn't do drugs, hasn't had any liquor since high school, you're probably going to lean Republican. I'm not saying that's you because we know you're apolitical. But
Give me a break.
okay, so let's take another person. That's a personality type.
All right.
I think that personality type is going to generally wind up in the red camp. Here's a personality type. You're very safety conscious. You love it when things are making things safer. Like everything in the car that drives me crazy that I didn't ask for. But for safety, that kind of person who went nuts when COVID happened, when we had to deal with the forever flu, that person's going to be a Democrat. But it really comes out of personality.
Yeah, but they want to belong to something. The number
Right.
one, the
You
number
want
one
an
need,
identity.
the number one need in all people is acceptance.
I'm telling you, during COVID, like it was so important to people's identity to be like you don't have a mask on? I have 3 masks on. That's how good a person I am.
Yeah, I'd see people on Mulholland driving in their car alone with a mask on.
Oh, I used to say, they think they're going to get it from the radio.
Yeah. Those are the people that read the directions on Pop-Tarts.
No.
Just want to be sure they put it in right.
Criticize about the left, but it never makes me go to to join the right. That's, I think, where we're different. It just wouldn't, and that's including marching for Hamas. I mean, that's as dumb as it gets, but you have to make the distinction. That's mostly a bunch of kids and idiot fucking professors. It's not the rank and file of the Democratic politician, even though they're too reluctant to condemn it. The one who does is Fetterman. Fetterman's the best. Have you had him?
I haven't yet.
You got to.
Is there a
You want me to
Democratic
set it
Party?
up?
Is there? Yes, I'd love to.
You should talk to John Fetterman.
Is there a Democratic Party, or has it been hijacked by the extreme left? Is there still a Democratic Party? Because let me tell you,
I say the exact same thing, and it's not even a question. The Republican Party has been hijacked by not even the extreme right, by Trumpism, which isn't even right. I mean, a lot of it is it's just a cult about one guy. I wouldn't call it right to be so loving of Russia. Russia? Republicans love Russia now? They're always sucking Russia's dick on Fox News? That isn't right-wing. That's crazy because the leader of their party is crazy.
If the Democratic Party of 20, 30 years.
First of all, Trump, we don't love, MAGA doesn't love Russia. I know they like to demonize Russia. Russia is like the new boogeyman country for them. But, we don't love Russia at all. So that's like a false narrative that they always push out there. But what do you expect from a drunken fool like Bill Maher?
It's not like the Democratic Party today.
Either is the Republican.
I was going to say that next.
No, I
it's the
agree.
same thing.
No, I agree. Yes.
Because I truly am apolitical. I vote for people and policies, not parties. But if I had to describe
Okay.
myself historically, I would say I've always been a social democrat and a financial Republican.
Do you ever have a Jewish girlfriend?
Mm,
You were very pro-Israel there a minute ago.
no, I don't think so.
No?
But like I say, I've been with the same woman 50 plus years.
Right.
So it's been a long time.
Okay. Jewish mistress?
That was a loaded question.
I really? I didn't think so.
Very clear no.
I know.
Very clear no. But I'm just I'm just saying we've got to do something here that, independent of who gets elected president, this country's got to wake up and start being more self-determining than depending on who's in office. And if you've got idiots out there that aren't putting America first, we got to kick their ass to the curb. It's just, I don't care if Republican or Democrat, we got to kick their ass to the curb. We can't have those people contaminating and poisoning
but-
the ideology.
But see, the Democratic Party is better at self-correcting. Like Kamala, her speech at the convention was very pro-American. I mean, if you told me that Kamala Harris would be the presidential candidate 6 months ago, and that I accepted that and then said, okay, and she's going to use the word privilege in her acceptance speech, I would have thought it would have been about white privilege and all that bullshit that they're always on about. Not that it's all bullshit, but it bugs me. I mean, they just go overboard. But that's not what her speech was about. She said it's a privilege to be an American, which is music to my ears.
Well, you
Like,
don't think
that's what
she-
that party needs to hear.
You don't think
That-
she wrote that speech, do you?
I don't. What politician writes their own speech? Maybe Obama. But who gives a shit? She said it. That's what matters. She said it. She gets it. And and by the way, immigrants get that. She's from immigrant stock. They get that. You're lucky to be here because you could be there where you walked 1,000 miles to get away from. That's one reason why they don't turn on Trump in the way the Democrats would like them to. Trump's popularity keeps going up with immigrants because when he says things like rapists, yeah, that's out of line, but they come from shithole countries. They're like, fucking right, we came from a shithole country. Why do you think we swam here through shark-infested waters or whatever the fuck they did? We did it because we came from a shithole country. This man speaks the truth. And now we're not in a shithole country. And, you know, I mean, there are more inspiring slogans than we're not a shithole country, but I mean,
That's a start.
it's a start. And there's too much about this country that does resemble a third world country, not least of which is an wannabe autocrat who does not believe in conceding elections. That's certainly a mark of a third world country.
Bill Maher is so big on the conceding elections. You guys don't concede elections. He's so big on that. In the other video I put out where he was with Megyn Kelly, that was his big thing. Like, well, Hillary conceded the election, even though she spent the next however many long years ever since then saying that the election was rigged, the election was stolen, Russia, Russia, Russia. Oh, but she conceded, so therefore it's all good, I guess. I guess if Donald Trump would have conceded the election that night and January 6th would have still happened, I guess in Bill Maher's mind that would have been fine because, hey, Donald Trump conceded, so J6 would have been fine. Well, I mean, of course not, because Bill Maher has TDS, and right now we are seeing a drunk TDS patient in action.
But, you know, in general, the America is good, especially compared to the way the rest of the world acts. I feel like the Democrats have gotten back on that message. They're back on that page. Whereas the Republicans, to your point about, like, don't change, okay, everybody at the Democratic convention who spoke was part of the tradition of the Democratic Center. Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Obama. The Republicans had nobody pre-Trump. George Bush, no Mitt Romney, nobody representing McCain. It's like that Republican Party didn't exist before Trump because they're not on board with the cult leader. So there is a difference.
What do you think America is going to do when they have time to figure out all of the people that lied about Biden's condition, all the people around him that lied about his condition.
Not me. I kept doing jokes about it, and people would say to me, and they'd stop me in restaurants and say, Bill, stop doing those jokes about Biden. You're helping Trump. And I'd be like, right, like no one would notice otherwise. Like I'm the guy who spilled the beans about Biden being old.
That's the last thing that helped Trump because it made him run against somebody else.
It's amazing how well this turned out for the Democrats. I mean, if they hadn't had the early debate, Biden would be the candidate. The fact that they had that debate, which never happened before, nobody ever had a debate in June. That was the dumbest thing that they could have done, because once the Democrats saw it, and the Democrats, for once in their lives, got their shit together fast, and they were like, oh, okay, out with the old, in with the new.
So what are you going to do if Trump wins?
Nothing. Nothing. Going on with my show and making jokes at his expense every week. And that's why this is a great country. Because as crazy as he is, he didn't do anything about it the first time. So I'm just not going to lose my nervous system about. Now, he could. He's insane. So he could, start sending people to Guantanamo Bay. I don't put anything past this guy. He thinks they're eating the cats and the dogs. But am I going to worry about it? First of all, I'm not going to worry about it, Phil, because he's not going to win. I put my marker down on this last week. I am not even.
You said before, that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it. That's not going to do it. This time you said this is
right.
it.
That's why I feel like I have credibility on this issue. I have been known as a Trump alarmist, and now I'm saying I'm not even nervous. I don't think it's going to.
I wonder if that's going to become the new PC way of saying Trump TDS sufferer. A Trump alarmist. Like, I am not a TDS sufferer. I am a Trump alarmist. I wonder if we're going to be seeing more of that.
It's going to be close. The polls are going to be dead even on election day, I promise. When people get in the booth, they're like some of those people who shop for Christmas at the last minute. They really don't know what they're doing.
What do you think did him in? What crossed you over this time to say he did
time. Just time. It's just enough. And then you just feel it. Like, I can't take any more. Like, was it the dogs and the cats? It just was like if you ask me, why did World War I start? Well, the quick answer is the Archduke of Sarajevo the Archduke of the Habsburg Empire was assassinated in Sarajevo. That was the final match. But it had been building for empires, as you well know, as an empire ruler, don't go to war like that for no reason. It builds, and builds. I just think they've had enough. Trumpism will live on, because Trumpism, to me, is a reaction to the insanity of the left that you and I do agree on. And as long as they perceive that half the country is fucking batshit nuts, which they're not completely wrong about, there will be another Trump. But I think they've had it with this one. This one is just worn out his welcome. I mean, they put up with so much from him. The trials and the women and the yickiness and the insanity and the Laura Loomers and the, January 6th, all of it they put up with, and still not even letting go of the 2020 election. It's just like, enough, It reminds me of guys I know who I knew were not happily married for a very long time. And then there was like one day when it was like, I just can't do it. I just can't. I know this is going to be so painful. These roots go deep. We have children, blah, blah, blah. I'll lose my money, whatever it is. I just can't do one more day. And then they divorce, and then they marry the first girl to give them a hand job. It's so sad. They just fuck it up again. But it reminds me of that.
So you think he's just worn it out? You think people are just going to get fatigued?
Enough. I feel
category fatigue.
I mean,
if you enjoy content like this, subscribe to my channel, give this video a like. Let's continue.
It's going to be, we're talking about a few 100,000 people perhaps, but I think it's going to be a little closer than that. First of all, she's definitely going to win the popular vote, as Democrats almost always do now. But I think she will win. I don't think. I think he will, of course, go batshit insane as he always does. He won't accept it. His followers, I think, will. I don't think their heart will really be in it as it was in 2020. Some of them, there's lots of people who will always be in the bunker with Mrs. Goebbels, taking the poison and giving the poison to the children because it's better than living in a world without National Socialism. I make an analogy, but I don't say he's a Nazi. But I think for most people, it's just fatigue. Yes, I think it's time. I compared it to Joe McCarthy. People got tired of Joe McCarthy in maybe 2 or 3 years. But, he wasn't in their face every day. Media was different then. But he was very Trumpian, and he was very big for that period. And then it just, it was a little like the end of War of the Worlds. Did you ever see War of the Worlds?
Mm-hmm.
The Spielberg version. Oh, it's so great. Tom Cruise and they're getting their ass kicked by the aliens, and then the ending is just and then they died. Then they got a virus or something. They got COVID, and suddenly it was just like then they died. And
Do you agree that both sides need to tone down the rhetoric?
Well, we talked about that on the show earlier today, and the point about rhetoric is he's a peculiar messenger because he calls people scum, vile, vermin. I mean, this is Hitler kind of talk. Vermin, enemies of the people. So he's just no one to talk. What I said was, look, I'm not going to hold my tongue to say something true just because some borderline person might take that as a reason to kill him or vice versa. I can't worry about what borderline people are going to say if I say he's a threat to democracy, because he is a threat to democracy. So I'm going to say what I think is true, but you have to play by the same rules. And they don't play by the same rules. They play by rules where they're literally threatening people, where they're basically saying, we don't want to have to kill you or use our Second Amendment rights. But if you push us too far and you keep winning, yes.
It's the Democrats and the left that don't play by their same rules. The rules that they set, they'll sit here and be like, the right is so dangerous, their rhetoric is so terrible, their rhetoric is harmful to these groups of people. But yet they sit here and spew all this dangerous rhetoric. Bill Maher just said right here, well, I'm not going to I'm not going to worry about if I say something, if it's going to lead to someone doing something crazy or whatever. Okay, fine. What about when someone on the right says it, though? What about if someone on the right says something? You complain about Donald Trump talking about Haitians eating dogs and cats, and the left will blow their mind saying, oh my God, that's so harmful to Haitians. Haitians are actually, all of them are actually wonderful people. And what he says is dangerous to those people. Okay, but with your own logic then, Donald Trump shouldn't have to worry about if what he says is going to lead to someone doing something dangerous and harmful. The double standards here is amazing. If it weren't for double standards, the left and Democrats wouldn't have standards at all.
Going to have to do that. I mean, they say that out loud.
Who?
Trump, I quoted him with his quote about, we have the rough people. I've got the police, the military, and they don't want to have to, but if they go too far, okay, that's basically saying I'm going to use police and military. Democrats don't do that. I mean, you can find some Antifa nut who says something like that, but Democrats don't talk like that. The Heritage Foundation guy had that line about, well, it's going to be, we're at the brink of a second American Revolution, and it'll be bloodless if the left lets it happen. Well, again, that's not how we do things in this country. We don't do, and we threaten you with violence if you don't let our way happen. That can't be how we do it.
See, I think all of that talk on both sides, I think is hyped up by the media. I think it is bad for this country.
Media, I'm quoting.
I don't think, well, I know, but I don't think that has to be in everybody's face every 30 minutes, news alert, breaking news.
No.
I don't think we are as divided
We're not.
as the media makes it out to be.
That's true too.
I don't think we're that divided. I
We're
think
not.
if you go talk to people throughout America, I don't think they feel nearly as alienated from their
So-
counterparts as
So how
everybody
do
makes it
so
out
how
to
do we
be.
marginalize both fringes? How do we make them the bad guys, which they kind of are?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And that's what I'm saying about this
But how do we do
70%
it?
in America. They need to stand up and speak up. And you know Frank Luntz, right?
Sure. Frank Luntz, the pollster. Yes, he actually hung around our show for, well, that was like 20 years ago. But yeah, I like Frank.
I was at his house one night. We had students there from USC, Democrats and Republicans, that were really hostile students. And they had gotten into some real problems on their websites and were name called, really some bad blood between them. And we spent about 3 hours with him one night at his house, kind of facing off with each other. And I got them to do an exercise one night where they had to stand up and face each other face to face, couldn't say anything for a long time, just had to look each other in the eye. And I really encouraged them to make eye contact and regard the other person as a human being and ask themselves, wonder what this person went through today. Wonder if their mom is healthy. Wonder if they've had a loss in their family.
Right.
Wonder if they have a pet. Wonder if they're struggling in their classes.
Wonder if they're holding.
You know, anything. Just regard them as a human being.
That's what I'd ask.
And then I had him answer a couple of questions, and then had him circulate through the room and do it over and over again, and then had him sit back down. And this took about 5 minutes. And the change in the room, it's online, you can take a look at it, was astounding. Where they said, you know what? I really am embarrassed that I haven't really thought about that person as a human being.
That's
I thought
awesome.
about him as a Republican, or I thought about him as a Democrat. And when I stood before him and looked at him, I realized they're just like me. They're just trying to figure this out and get through it. And you know, we really have stopped thinking about each other as human beings. And if you just take time to think about that and say, you know, they're just like me. And yeah, every time I negotiate with somebody or teach negotiation in law enforcement or military or whatever, I always say the first thing you have to do is sit down and say, before we start, let's talk about everything we agree on. Let's just get a good list of everything that we can agree we both want. And by the time you get through that list, it's like you took the air out of the room.
But I've
Because
seen-
we do want an awful lot of the same thing.
But I've seen you with some people who I wouldn't agree with anything on. I mean, I saw you with some young black man who believes he's a cyborg from the future. I don't agree with that.
That's pathology. That's pathology.
That was well said by Dr. Phil. I do agree that we don't have to be as divided as we are, and I think we have a lot more in common than we think. If you want to see more Dr. Phil talking some sense, I got a whole playlist for you in the left-hand corner. If you want to see Bill Maher making a fool out of himself, well, I got more of that for you too below that.